Want to make beautiful cabochons like these and don't know where to start? Looking to create a side hustle making cabs, or just wanting to make them for your own jewelry pieces? Stick around and I'll show you everything I use while making cabs and give you an idea of what kind of investment it takes to get set up. I start off buying what are called slabs, and these are slices of rock that are about 1/4 inch thick and vary in size, some 6 to 8 inches wide down to 1/2 to 1 inch wide turquoise pieces. There are many suppliers for slabs online. eBay and Instagram are a couple sources I use. I also buy turquoise rough and smaller stones that can be slab cut with a trim saw. If you're wanting to cut large stones, you'll need to invest in a slab saw, and they can be quite expensive. This is something I've chosen to get at a later date when it becomes necessary, but for right now, I get by fine with my 6-inch trim saw. There are two pieces of equipment that are the heart of any lapidary shop, and that's the trim saw and cab grinder polisher. These two items will be your biggest expense, so let's get started by adding the trim saw to our list of items that we need. There are several manufacturers of lapidary trim saws. There's Diamond Pacific, Covington, Ameritool, and High Tech Diamond, and they typically come in 4, 6, 8, and 10-inch sizes. The larger the saw, the larger size of rough stone you can cut slabs out of. All will cut your slabs to a rough shape just fine, and for my budget, I chose the High Tech 6-inch trim saw. I can slab small nuggets of turquoise with no problem, and after a year of use, I don't regret not buying a larger saw. There's also the option of buying a tile cutting saw, something you can get at Home Depot or Harbor Freight. They're less expensive than a lapidary saw, but there's some trade-offs. Tile saws are noisier, they tend to spray more water so they're not as clean, and the blades have a wider kerf, which is the thickness of the blade, so they create more waste. They also don't make as smooth a cut as a lapidary saw. Now, here's a look at my trim saw. I've had it in operation for a year and it's worked just fine. The only complaints I've seen are that some don't like the fact that the water reservoir has no drain, and to clean it you have to take the whole machine to a sink or dump the water outside. I suppose you could scoop the water out and clean it that way, but that's a time-consuming process that I'm not particularly wanting to do. I'm lucky in that I have my shop set up in the garage, so it's easy to just pick the machine up, take it out and dump the water, spray it down with a hose to clean it up when needed. Okay, so the next item on our list is the most expensive, and that's the wheel grinder polisher, otherwise known as a cabbing machine. Now, this is basically a motor turning an arbor with a set of diamond-coated abrasive wheels on it. The wheels are housed in an enclosure as they're lubricated with water to keep your stones cool. There are a few manufacturers of cabbing machines, but after much research, I chose to get the CabKing 6. And as the name implies, it has 6-inch diamond wheels. They also have an 8-inch model, and one of the aspects I wrestled with was whether a 6-inch would be large enough for the size cabs I wanted to make, or if I needed to buy the larger 8-inch version. The largest cab I tend to make is 40 by 30 millimeter, and if you plan on regularly making bigger cabs than this, you might want to consider the 8-inch machine. But the 6-inch size has turned out to be just fine for me and my big old hands. Here we are unboxing the CabKing. It was really well packaged and sent out quickly. I had it within a few days of ordering, and I have to give kudos to CabKing. I contacted their customer service department with a couple of questions I had, and they were readily available and very helpful. I did have problems with the motor about 6 months in. It developed a noise, and I suspected it was a bearing. So I sent in a video showing what was going on, and they didn't hesitate to send me a new motor the same day and told me to keep the old one for spare parts. Again, I can't speak highly enough about CabKing's customer service. They're great. Now, the machine comes with a lot of accessories. On the end of the right side arbor, you have a threaded attachment for either a polishing disc or a flat lap diamond disc. Both are included with the machine. They also supply you with wrenches to make any adjustments to your machine, as well as the water pump, and necessary tubing for supply and water drainage. You will need to get a couple 5-gallon buckets, one for water supply and the other for drain. So let's add those to our list. And at this point, you need to think about a sturdy table to put your saw and grinder on, as well as an area for preparing your slabs. My table was one I had previously constructed, and I covered it with a vinyl material I had laying around the shop. This is something else you need to take into consideration. Cabbing is inherently wet and somewhat a dirty process. I had originally thought of maybe setting up shop in a spare bedroom, but quickly found out it would be much better to set up in the garage where there's a concrete floor that I could mop up easily. My table measures 6 foot by 2 foot, and here you can see my layout and the footprint of the saw and grinder. Prior to using either of these machines, we need to do some prep work to our slabs. First up, we need to lay out our cabs. And to do this, we need a template and an extra fine tipped Sharpie. I got my templates from Covington Engineering, and there's a link in the description as well as links to all the equipment and supplies I use and talk about here. I have 2 of their templates, a metal one that allows me to scribe both sides of the slab, then a single-sided plastic one, and I use both at times, but if I only wanted to buy one, it would be the plastic one. I trace the outline of the cab, then scribe straight lines for the cuts I want to make with the trim saw. This is done to save time on the grinder and to make your wheels last longer. The next step is to apply a backing to our slabs if necessary. Now I back all my turquoise as it's fairly soft, but backing is not necessary on harder stones. To do the backing, we'll need some JB Weld, which is a 2-part metal infused epoxy. You squeeze out equal parts from both tubes and using a popsicle stick, mix it up thoroughly. Then spread the mixture about an 1/8 inch thick on the back of your slab. Lay out a piece of wax paper onto a hard surface and press the slab into the wax paper until you see a little squeeze out around the sides. Then you should let the epoxy dry overnight. The next day they'll easily peel off the wax paper and you'll be ready to make your rough cuts on the trim saw. Now once you have your slabs backed and the outline rough cut, it's time to mount them to a dop stick. Now there are 2 ways to do this. One uses wooden dowels and hot wax. The other, which is the method I use, is to mount the slabs to the head of a 16-penny nail using a gel type super glue. I have a wax dopping machine and they're not very expensive, but I found the nail and glue method works so well that I've never even fired up my wax machine. The nail also seems to be the perfect size for me to hold on to and rotate while I'm doing my cabs, and the glue dries relatively quickly so I can get on with the process. Okay, so let's add these items to our list, and you'll want to make yourself a stand to hold your dopped slabs. Mine is just a piece of 2.5 inch square stock with 5/16 inch holes drilled into it. Once I've let the super glue dry 5 to 10 minutes, I'll head over to the grinder and start shaping the perimeter of the outside oval shape. Once this is done, I dry the stone very well so that I can mark the outside of the oval with the girdle height. This line should be somewhere between 2 to 3 millimeters up from the bottom of the slab. And for this, you'll need a set of calipers or a small 6-inch metric scale ruler. Try to place a mark at the 2.5 millimeter height. Then using a pencil as a support, take your Sharpie and mark all around the outside of the cab as shown here. Next we'll start the grinding process, and this consists of shaping and polishing the cab using progressively finer grit wheels until you have a finely polished gemstone. Now this video is not about showing how to grind a cabochon. It's just designed to show you what you're going to need for the process. I will suggest some great lapidary artists to watch that are more qualified to show you how to cut cabs than I am. I'll leave links in the description for videos by these guys. First up, I'd watch Hartman. John's been cutting cabs for longer than he'd care to admit, I'm sure, and he's definitely a master at it, as well as being a master silversmith. Then there's a video by Larry Carby, who's a cabbing instructor at the William Holland School of Lapidary Arts. He shows the whole process from start to finish in great detail. So once you've got your cab polished on the CabKing, all that's left to do is remove it from the nail and to clean up the back. Now I removed the cab with a MAP gas torch, as you see here, and then I'll take a utility knife and carefully remove the majority of the remaining super glue and finish up by sanding to get any remaining glue residue off the back. Okay, so that's a brief overview of the cabbing process and what you're going to need to start your lapidary business. Here's the final list of equipment and supplies needed, and as you can see, it takes a considerable investment to get up and running. But making cabs is quite satisfying, and with practice, you can be well on your way to recouping your investment and on the path to making a profit. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if so, please hit that like button, and if you want to see more videos like this one, be sure to subscribe so you'll be informed when new videos are released. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.